Meanwhile, Minnesota Republicans have again raised concerns over election integrity after a handful of ballots in Edina were caught on camera being left unattended.
Quinn Gorham explains how the state's top elections officials are responding.
Earlier this week, a courier was transporting ballots in Edina. It's a normal process ahead of Election Day for couriers to transport ballots between the city and county, as the county needs to receive all of those absentee ballots before Election Day. What's not normal is how the ballots were left unattended, caught on camera in the open trunk of the courier's car. Both Hennepin County and the Secretary of State have come out and since called the situation unacceptable. But Republicans in the state want more. First and foremost, Secretary Steve Simon was firm in expressing that the situation did violate election chain of custody laws. He also explained that surveillance footage and a count of all ballots revealed that all ballots were accounted for. That said, several Republicans, including former Secretary of State Mary Kiffmeyer, held a press conference at the Minnesota Capitol building on Thursday, urging Simon to go a step further. Kiffmeyer seemed to reference election parity laws, which say that members of both parties must deliver ballots on Election Day. She indicated that no matter Simon's interpretation, the parity law should also apply to the delivery of absentee ballots.
Just common sense, all ballots. The interpretation should be all ballots deserve equal protection, whether it's Election Day or it's the days before. That's really the primary issue that we're here for today.
The Secretary of State's office pointed to a different statute, one which deals specifically with transportation of absentee ballots, which does not reference any sort of parity laws. In a statement issued on Thursday, the Secretary reiterated that none of the ballots were compromised in the incident in Edina, and that action was taken to ensure the situation would never happen again. Reporting in St. Paul, I'm Quinn Gorham.
Republicans are also involved in a lawsuit alleging that Hennepin County did not use election judges from a list provided by their party, as is required in state law. The last day for in-person early voting is November 2nd. For more information on voting in Minnesota, head to KUIC.com.